In this video, I'm going to talk about effective testimony for court or for a deposition. And I feel like this has just been a season of client after client having trial. I've done so much coaching with clients in the last few weeks about testimony. I've got a couple doing trial, I've got a couple doing depositions, and kind of the general philosophies are the same. But this is just a topic that just keeps coming up over and over and over these last few weeks. And so I feel like the whole world of child custody is in trial right now. So I feel like this would be a very helpful topic for us to dive into. And so I'm going to give you just some core, basic 101 principles of kind of how you approach testimony and some things to think about that. Maybe even if your attorney's prepping you, which I would assume if you have an attorney, they are going to prep you for either one of these things, but even some things that they don't necessarily dive into. Before we talk about that, let me just remind you, if you like this content and you find it helpful, don't forget to hit like on this video. Also subscribe to the channel so that you get notified as new videos are released. And if you'd like information on my coaching programs, there's a link in the description that you can click to find out more about that. Testimony. Look, the biggest thing that works against people in testifying is their emotions, right? It's a very unnerving process. It's very intimidating. The opposing counsel that is going to be asking you questions is really there to try to prod you, poke you, get you to react, get you to demonstrate whatever type of narrative they're trying to create about you. And so really emotional control is the name of the game in effective testimony. When I say emotional control, I don't mean emotional void, right? I'm not saying that you shouldn't show emotion on the stand a little bit, especially like toward your child, and maybe you've missed your child because you haven't had time with them, or kind of your tone softens and you have this warmth about you when you speak about them. I think those types of things are good. The things we don't want are the negative emotions, right? Anger, frustration, dismissiveness, hysteria, attacking. Those types of things generally do not play well when you are testifying. And that is sort of the arena that opposing counsel is going to be trying to push you into. So the very first thing I tell people is slow yourself down. That is part of how you maintain emotional control as much as you can around these types of situations. Just slowing down your speech can be a really helpful tactic. I actually do that to myself sometimes, even in the recording of these videos, because I sit down to record and, I've got a topic in my head and this is where we're going to go. And I know all the things I want to tell you and blah, 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 right? Like, let me just get it all out. But if I do that, it's not as effective. You aren't able to absorb it as easily. You have to kind of know your audience. And sometimes it can kind of come out all muddled or way more emotional or whatever. And so really just slowing yourself down helps you maintain your thought process, your composure, and your emotions around this situation. Now, if you've listened to me for any length of time, you will know one of the things that I highly recommend that people do is to go into the courtroom and watch your judge, if at all possible. If you can't watch your judge, watch a judge, but watching your judge, people come back and say it's one of the most helpful things that they have done. People will say, well, am I allowed to go do that? Yes. Yes, you are. All you have to do is say to the bailiff, hey, I've got court coming up. I'm trying to observe so that I can learn the process. And they'll be like, okay, it's generally not a problem. I really haven't had anybody have any issues. Occasionally you'll have a trial that is specifically closed to the public. That can happen. You also need to understand that when you do go do this, there are different types of hearings to go watch, and a regular motion, what we call a motion hearing, a pendente lite hearing, temporary orders hearing. It's called request for order in California. Anything by that name, there's generally not testimony given, okay? But at something that's called either an evidentiary hearing or trial, you are going to see testimony. in those things. And most courts, most judges have a specific day for trials or evidentiary hearing. And usually the court's, business office can tell you what that is for a specific judge. You can go in and you can watch these things, and it's super helpful because number one, you are in that environment, which helps your nervous system sort of adapt to that environment so that when you go in to testify, it's not, the first or second time that you've been in there, which is much more intimidating emotionally. And so just being in that environment will help you kind of acclimate to it in your nervous system and for it not to rattle you. Like me, for instance, where I've been in and out of courtrooms for close to 20 years now, it's like I can walk into a courtroom, I don't get nervous. I don't have that emotional upheaval. It's also different when it's your case. So obviously I'm not going in on my case, which is different also. But even going in on your case, you will find yourself less nervous and less kind of that intensity won't be quite as gripping for you because you will have been there. You'll know what it looks like, what to expect, what the process kind of looks like, and it will just help you a whole lot. Okay. When you go to testify and, assuming that you are remaining calm and kind of slowing yourself down, one of the things to understand is that your attorney, especially when you're being questioned by the other side, can insert objections. And when your attorney's questioning you, the other side can insert objections. Okay. So it's always helpful to kind of have just a little pause before you answer the question. I always tell people even just 4 to 5 seconds, and to give, the attorneys time to voice any objection they have, especially when opposing counsel is questioning you and you want your attorney to have time to ask for an objection if they want to, because what happens is they're sort of rifling through their brain, right? Trying to come up with, is there any objection they could make against this question? So you want to give them a little bit of thought process time if you're able to do that. And again, just that 4 or 5 second pause is great. One of the things that you want to do, you do not want to use any dismissive behaviors when you're on the witness stand. You don't want to roll your eyes. You don't want to, sigh like that. You don't want to shrug your shoulders. You don't want to do anything like that. Judges are very perceptive around body language and that type of thing when you're testifying. So that can have an influence if they're asking you questions and you're treating it as if, it's irrelevant or unimportant or whatever. So you want to be careful about your body language. You are always answering the attorney that is questioning you. So that's primarily where you want your focus to be. The judge will interject sometimes, and it's fine to turn to the judge and answer something that they're asking you or something they're saying, or watch the conversation in the room or whatever. But for the most part, you are responding to whichever attorney is asking you questions in that moment. So make sure that you're focused in the appropriate place. One of the things I tell people is there are little things that you can do. Like I always say, look up about colors, because when you wear navy blue is considered a trust color, right? So people tend to trust you when you wear navy blue. If you've ever worked in sales, it's one of the things they teach you. Navy blue is a great color to wear for sales because it causes the person that you're talking to have more trust for you, just at a basic psychological level that they don't even realize. Okay. So, and I don't know if you've ever been in car dealerships, if you ever notice, like blue is a color that comes up a lot when you're dealing with car dealership people. Okay. Just notice next time you're in. So that's a great little kind of extra trick, right? That you can do. I always tell people when you're going in, you want to be pulling every single lever that can work in your favor. We have the basic foundational stuff, and then we have all these little things that we can do that add to it. And so you always want to be pulling all of the levers that you can possibly pull. And that is one of them. For me personally, I have a really strong personality for a female. So I might go, okay, well, who's the judge I'm in front of? Am I in front of a female? Am I in front of somebody who sort of has more feminine type ideals and, is it leans towards being a feminist or whatever? Then I might step into that a little more, right? If I'm in front of an older male judge, I might say, well, I need to kind of soften myself. Maybe I'll wear pink or a pastel or something that kind of visually counters my strong personality, right? So knowing your judge and knowing your audience is something I talk about a lot. It's huge. There's little things that you can do. Look, Google and AI and all those things are great resources. You can go and look up all this stuff, how colors psychologically affect people and all that kind of stuff, which is, again, another thing that you can kind of pull that lever. So really, one of your main things is when your attorney's questioning you, you're going to be able to give some narrative answers. But for the most part, when opposing counsel is questioning you, kind of the school of thought, basic 101 is you don't want to elaborate on your answers, right? My husband used to say, just answer the question that they're asking you. It's usually a yes or no question or something that requires a very short answer, and you don't want to elaborate. We all want to go, well, yes, but, right? So you want to be really careful about doing that kind of thing. It can open up other cans of worms that you didn't want to open, okay? So just stick to what's in front of you. And one of the things I tell clients all the time is trust your attorney to do their job. They're going to object when they need to. They're going to get to re-question you on certain things and do what we call redirect and that type of stuff. And so a lot of this comes into just trusting them that they're going to do what they need to do, and you kind of stay in your lane and do what you need to do and don't make their job harder for them. Once you get past those kind of foundational things, the other thing I tell people is read the stuff from the previous filings before you go in for your testimony. Kind of know your dates of major incidences that have happened. Know your children's, doctor's name and teacher's name and dentist's name and some of the kind of foundational stuff. But reread the declarations or pleadings from you and your ex to remind you of what has been said, what has been talked about. And honestly, that can usually tell you what types of questions you can expect to be asked, because they're probably going to be questions around those subjects that were written about in the declarations of each party. That's some of my basic tips. I obviously can't go over every single tip that I usually provide people, but hopefully those few give you a little bit better start on the path. And look, if you need more help with this type of thing, you're facing attorneys and court and trial and custody evaluators and all these different people. There is an art to this. There is a lot of things that you can do that will help you succeed in this arena if you know what those things are, obviously. So if you'd like help with that, you can go to divorceuniversityonline.com/VIP-coaching. There is information on that page on my group coaching programs for moms and for dads, and also on my premium one-on-one VIP coaching services. There is a link in the description below this video. So go check that out, see which program would be a good fit for you, and I'll see you guys next time.